Ellie Harper had always been the invisible girl in Ridgewood, a small town tucked away between towering pines and winding rivers. Ridgewood was picturesque, charming, quiet, and peaceful, but beneath the surface, it held a darker side. In a town where secrets were treasured more than anything, Ellie was a part of that world, but also apart from it. The daughter of a tireless single mother, Diane, a nurse at Ridgewood General Hospital, Ellie learned early on to navigate the shadows. Diane's demanding job kept her away most nights, leaving Ellie to entertain herself with her thoughts and her drawings. A shy, bookish girl, Ellie spent hours lost in her sketchbook, drawing castles, dragons, and imaginary worlds. In many ways, her art was her escape. Her only real anchor in the chaos was her best friend, Emma Donovan. Emma was everything Ellie wasn't: outgoing, confident, and effortlessly beautiful. With a family fortune that rivaled the town's most influential families, the Donovans were Ridgewood royalty, owning businesses, theaters, and grand estates. Richard Donovan, Emma's father, was a man of power, his presence dominating the town's every move. Though Ellie often felt like an outsider in Emma's glittering world of parties and privilege, the two had remained inseparable. But that all began to change in their junior year when a new English teacher arrived, Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole was passionate about literature, making stories come alive in a way that Ellie had never experienced. His encouragement of her art and writing brought out something in Ellie that she hadn't known existed. But Mr. Cole's presence had also disrupted the delicate balance of power in Ridgewood, especially when he began questioning some of the town's darker dealings that Richard Donovan was deeply involved in. It was a rainy Friday evening in March, and Ellie had stayed late at school to finish a mural for the art club. The quiet hallways echoed with her footsteps as she packed up her brushes, the fluorescent lights flickering above. A sense of unease washed over her, but she dismissed it. As Ellie stepped outside, pulling her hoodie tight against the cold drizzle, she heard voices coming from the parking lot. Curiosity nudged her forward. She moved quietly, staying in the shadows of the school's outer walls. Under a dim streetlight, she saw Richard Donovan towering over Mr. Cole. The rain made their expressions hard to read, but their body language spoke volumes. "You don't know who you're dealing with, Cole. Stay out of my business, or you'll regret it. This town deserves better than your lies, Richard. You can't silence the truth forever." Ellie's heart pounded in her chest as the argument escalated. She crept closer, careful to stay unseen. Suddenly, Richard's hand shot out and shoved Mr. Cole. The sound of Mr. Cole hitting the wet pavement echoed in Ellie's ears. Her breath caught in her throat, her feet frozen to the ground. Before she could react, a tall figure darted away from the scene, disappearing into the night. The fallout from that night was swift. Mr. Cole was found unconscious and rushed to the hospital, barely clinging to life. When he awoke, his memory of the incident was blurry, leaving Ellie as the key witness for the prosecution. The trial that followed became the talk of Ridgewood, with reporters swarming the courthouse and townspeople debating in coffee shops. The Donovan family's reputation was on the line. Ellie felt the weight of the town's eyes on her as she took the witness stand. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Richard Donovan sat at the defense table, his calm demeanor barely concealing his underlying frustration, while Emma sat in the back, avoiding Ellie's gaze entirely. "Miss Harper, please describe what you witnessed on the night of March 15th. Ellie's hands trembled as she clutched the edges of the witness stand, her heart racing. "I saw Mr. Donovan arguing with Mr. Cole. He pushed him, and Mr. Cole fell." Before she could continue, the defense attorney interjected. "Objection, Your Honor. The witness is speculating. He pushed him? This is not a fact, but an assumption." "Objection sustained. Miss Harper, please limit your testimony to what you can state with certainty." Ellie's face burned as the murmurs of the courtroom intensified. She caught a glimpse of Emma in the back, her eyes filled with both shame and conflict. "Miss Harper, you mentioned seeing a shadowy figure running away from the scene that night. How can we be sure that this figure even exists, let alone played a role in the incident?" "I'm not saying they were the cause of what happened. I just saw someone running away from the scene. It was too fast for me to catch their face, but they weren't walking away like they were just passing by. They were running." "So you saw a tall, running figure in the dark, and now you want us to believe this person was somehow involved? What proof do we have of that?" "Objection, Your Honor. The witness is merely explaining what she saw. The defense is trying to discredit her without reason." "Objection sustained. Miss Harper, please continue." "I'm just telling you what happened. Someone was running away from the scene, and it wasn't just an accident or coincidence." "Miss Harper, let's be honest. You didn't see much, did you? You didn't see the whole incident, and now you're relying on this shadowy figure to fill in the blanks. I saw what I saw. It's the truth. And you've only chosen to mention this figure now? After everything else has fallen apart. Convenient, don't you think? No, it wasn't convenient. I didn't know it was important until Emma told me about the meeting. That's when it all clicked. The courtroom buzzed with hushed whispers as the trial resumed. Ellie's earlier testimony had sent shockwaves through those present, setting the stage for a dramatic turn of events. The tension was palpable as the prosecutor stepped forward with a revelation that would change everything. On the screen, grainy surveillance footage flickering to life. The room collectively leaned forward as the shadowy figure fleeing the scene came into focus. The prosecutor paused, letting the tension mount. Then, with a dramatic flourish, she declared, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the individual you see in this footage is Charles Bray, an associate of Richard Donovan, and a man deeply entrenched in a web of criminal activity." Gasps echoed through the courtroom as the weight of the revelation sunk in. Bray's face, unmistakable in the footage, was now burned into everyone's memory. This is not just an argument gone wrong. This is a conspiracy, a carefully orchestrated cover-up designed to mislead this court and bury the truth. Richard Donovan sat stiffly at the defense table, his hands clenched into fists, his voice a low, frantic whisper. "We've lost. This case is over." Donovan's jaw tightened, his face betraying the weight of impending defeat. Ellie's courage had flipped the script. Her testimony, combined with the damning evidence, unraveled the lies and brought the truth to light. Bray's immediate arrest was followed by a confession that implicated Donovan in the attack on Mr. Cole. The once powerful man was now exposed, his carefully constructed facade shattered. But victory came at a cost. The courtroom drama was over, but Ellie's personal life was in turmoil. Her once close bond with Emma was irreparably damaged. The betrayal was a wound too deep for words to heal. Ellie had chosen the truth over loyalty, a choice that left her isolated, yet stronger than ever. Ridgewood, a town once steeped in secrecy, was forced to confront its own darkness. Ellie, no longer the quiet girl who blended into the background, had become a symbol of resilience and courage. Her voice, once muted, now carried the weight of truth, shaking the foundations of a town content to look the other way. Standing in the sunlight outside the courthouse, Ellie felt a quiet triumph. She had faced the shadows and won. Ridgewood would never see her the same way again. The truth is worth it, always. The fallout was far from over, but Ellie knew one thing for certain. She had uncovered the darkness lurking in Ridgewood's corners, and there was no going back. The invisible girl had become a force to be reckoned with, a beacon for others to follow. Catherine Kitty Genovese was far more than a headline. She was a vibrant and ambitious young woman full of promise. Born in Brooklyn, New York in 1935, she was the eldest of 5 siblings in a tight-knit Italian-American family. Her parents, Vincent and Rachel Genovese, emphasized the importance of hard work and independence, values that shaped Kitty's determined spirit. Her life took a dramatic turn after her mother witnessed a violent in their neighborhood, prompting the family to relocate to New Canaan, Connecticut, in search of safety. However, Kitty, now a young adult, missed the energy and opportunities of the city. She eventually moved back to New York, eager to pave her own way in life. Settling in Queens, Kitty became the bar manager at Ev's 11th Hour, a well-loved local establishment. She quickly became known for her charm, wit, and ability to make everyone feel at home. Kitty had also recently moved into an apartment in Kew Gardens with her girlfriend Marianne Zelenko, a bold and courageous decision in an era when being openly queer often led to discrimination. By 1964, her life was filled with potential, but that sense of hope was tragically cut short on March 13th. Kew Gardens, a middle-class neighborhood in Queens, was known for its quiet streets and strong sense of safety. Residents often felt secure enough to leave their doors unlocked, believing their community to be free from the dangers of urban crime. Yet, the very features that made Kew Gardens feel safe also contributed to the events of that night. The neighborhood's physical layout played a critical role. Tall apartment buildings with soundproofed windows insulated residents from the sounds of the street, while dimly lit alleyways and courtyards created areas of darkness that concealed events from view. This design not only obscured visibility, but also muffled Kitty's desperate cries for help, making it difficult for anyone to fully grasp the severity of the situation. Social dynamics in Kew Gardens further exacerbated the issue. While the neighborhood projected a sense of community, many residents led private lives with minimal interaction beyond polite greetings. This environment fostered a sense of detachment and a diffusion of responsibility, where individuals assumed that someone else would intervene or had already taken action. Kitty's screams did echo through the night, but the combination of ambiguous cries, physical barriers, and the psychological tendency to avoid involvement led residents to dismiss the situation as a domestic dispute or a drunken altercation, common occurrences in the city. Tragically, these factors created a perfect storm of inaction, leaving Kitty without the help she so desperately needed. The tragic contrast between Kew Gardens' reputation as a safe haven and its collective failure to intervene raises profound questions about human behavior, urban isolation, and the responsibilities we bear to one another in moments of crisis. In the early hours of March 13, 1964, Kitty was returning home after her shift. She parked her red Fiat near the Long Island Railroad station, a short walk from her apartment, but as she approached her building, a figure emerged from the shadows. Winston Mosley, a man with a disturbing secret life. Mosley, a 29-year-old married father of two, worked as a machine operator by day, but by night, he prowled the streets looking for women to assault and That night, he followed Kitty for several blocks before attacking her near her apartment's entrance. Kitty screamed as Mosley stabbed her in the back. "Oh my God, he stabbed me! Help me!" she cried out, her voice piercing the stillness of the night. Lights flickered on in nearby apartments. Some witnesses later admitted to seeing Mosley attack Kitty, but they assumed it was a lover's quarrel or that someone else would call the police. Mosley fled temporarily after one man yelled out his window, "Leave that girl alone!" But when no one came outside to help Kitty, Mosley returned 10 minutes later to finish what he started. He found her collapsed near the entrance to her building, barely conscious. This time, Mosley stabbed her multiple times, assaulted her, and stole $49 from her wallet before leaving her to die. It wasn't until almost 30 minutes later that a neighbor, Sophie Farrar, finally went to Kitty's aid. By then, it was too late. Kitty was rushed to the hospital, but succumbed to her injuries en route. Winston Mosley was an unlikely suspect at first glance. Married, with 2 young children, he lived in a modest home in South Ozone Park and worked a stable job. But behind the facade of normalcy was a man with dark compulsions. Mosley later confessed to the police that he had an uncontrollable urge. He admitted to stalking 2 other women before Kitty, Annie Mae Johnson, whom he shot and burned, and Barbara Kralik, a 15-year-old he stabbed in her bedroom. He also confessed to numerous burglaries, describing his crimes with chilling detachment. The trial of Winston Mosley began in June 1964 at the Queens County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed with reporters, family members, and curious onlookers. Kitty's had become a national story, not just because of its brutality, but because of the shocking apathy of the witnesses. The defense tried to argue that Mosley was insane, citing his bizarre behavior and violent compulsions, but the prosecution painted a picture of a cold-blooded who knew exactly what he was doing. This man didn't just kill Kitty Genovese, he hunted her like an animal, leaving and returning to ensure her death. His actions were calculated and deliberate. He deserves the harshest penalty. Winston Mosley is not a monster, but a deeply disturbed individual. His actions, while horrific, were driven by mental illness. He should be institutionalized, not executed. The most controversial aspect of the case was the claim that 38 witnesses had heard Kitty's screams but failed to act. While this number was later disputed, it remained a central theme in the trial. One witness, Carl Ross, admitted under cross-examination that he had seen part of the attack from his apartment window, but didn't intervene. "Mr. Ross, what exactly did you do when you saw Kitty being attacked?" I froze. I didn't know what to do. I was scared." "Scared of what? Calling the police? Helping a dying woman?" "I didn't know if it was real. I thought someone else would help." "Mr. Ross, in a city of millions, you're telling us you thought someone else would act? You watched a woman suffer and did nothing." I didn't think it was that serious. I didn't know." "Do you think Kitty's brother thought it wasn't serious when he found out his sister died because of apathy? You were a witness to a sir, and you failed her." Kitty's brother, Bill Genovese, sat in the gallery, visibly shaken as Ross spoke. "Mr. Ross, let's address the night in question. You were there, but you didn't intervene. Isn't it possible that, in your fear, you froze? That you couldn't fully comprehend the severity of the situation at the time?" I guess. Yes, I was scared." "Understandable. Fear can cloud judgment, but what if, just what if, the situation wasn't what it seemed? What if it was a misunderstanding? A tragedy, yes, but not one you could have prevented." The jury shifted in their seats. A few exchanged glances. Ross swallowed hard, his eyes darting to the prosecutor. "Objection, Your Honor. The defense is attempting to speculate and divert attention. The facts are clear. The defendant wasn't misunderstood. He attacked, fled, and then returned to finish what he started. This is about accountability, not hypotheticals. Objection sustained. Mr. Sparrow, stay on track. Members of the jury, let's be honest. Winston Moseley is not a man driven by reason. He is a man battling uncontrollable urges that stem from a mind unwell. The prosecution's focus is on punishment, not on understanding. Is vengeance really what we want here, or can we imagine a future where rehabilitation is possible? The courtroom murmured softly. Ross avoided everyone's gaze. His shoulders slumped. Vengeance? No, Mr. Sparrow. This is not vengeance. This is justice. Kenny Genovese's life was stolen, ruthlessly, brutally. Her family, her friends, and this community will never see her smile again. Rehabilitation? What about the countless nights her family will spend reliving this nightmare? What about ensuring that no other woman suffers the same fate? That is why we're here. Not to ponder the defendant's state of mind, but to protect future victims and deliver justice for Kitty. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. The jury leaned forward, their expressions a mix of resolve and unease. Outside the windows, the world seemed to hold its breath. After 7 hours of deliberation, the jury found Winston Moseley guilty of first-degree. He was sentenced to death, but the sentence was later commuted to life imprisonment after New York abolished the death penalty in 1967. The Kitty Genovese case became a symbol of urban apathy and led to significant changes in how Americans think about public safety and civic responsibility. The tragedy inspired the creation of the 911 emergency system, making it easier for people to report crimes. Bill Genovese, Kitty's younger brother, spent much of his life advocating for crime victims and exploring the psychological phenomenon of the bystander effect. His documentary, The Witness, 2015, re-examines the case and challenges some of the myths surrounding his sister's death. As for Winston Moseley, he spent over 50 years in prison before dying in 2016. He remained unrepentant, making numerous escape attempts and committing further crimes while incarcerated.